topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Hey, good morning, Houston. Welcome to another Ask the Expert show, where we bring you the finest experts in the field of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. My opening for this first expert, which is going to be with us the entire 50 minutes of our show, is really a special expert. He has been with us for 10 years, and we have developed a great friendship. I trust him so much. We are going to be talking about a subject that it's not a subject that people love talking about, but the good part is we're going to give you a way to make this a good subject. I'm going to introduce you to Barry Fowler. He's the president and founder of Taxation Solutions, Inc. He's an enrolled agent, and if you don't know what an enrolled agent is, we're going to be discussing that. He's licensed to represent taxpayers before the Internal Revenue Service. His experience in tax and finance industry spans over 30 years, and I got to tell you, if you do any research on tax relief companies, 30 years is just unheard of. You see a lot of the complaints they have, not with Barry Fowler and Taxation Solutions. So let me welcome you, not only as our expert, but my friend, Barry Fowler.
Hey, good morning, Steve. Hey, where are we today? I mean, I've done a national program with you. I've done a few.
Yeah, we're in Houston today.
We're in Houston. Hey,
you're right in your backyard today.
We have fun doing this, and I've enjoyed doing this with you for 10 plus years, and working with Ask the Experts, and back in the day it was strictly radio. And
yes.
Hosts around the country that you would invite me to go out and talk with. And it was, it's been a lot of fun. And I think that 30 years, we're getting closer to those 40 years now.
Probably so.
In the tax business and stuff. So, it's been fun. We enjoy it. We've seen the ups and downs of the IRS, the twists and turns of their collection policies and the way they go about collecting taxes from you and I and taxpayers across the country. Changes in tax code, from when Ronald Reagan changed the tax code back in the 80s to, sorry about that. It's actually Dean Collins.
Thank you, Barry.
And so, and then we've seen the changes during the Clinton administration, both Bush administrations, and then Obama, and then Trump, and now we're in the current administration, waiting to see what's going to happen with the tax code here in the next few years after this election, because the Trump tax codes expire at the end of 2025, and one party says we're not going to continue them, and the other party says we're going to continue them and make them better. So, everybody votes. You got to make a choice.
Barry, you and I have never made this show political, but we get people knowing about your show all seem to ask us the same question. Is, there's some promises being made out there about taxes, about the service industry people and tips, not being taxed on tips anymore, Social Security not being taxed on. There's many things out there. Can a president do that?
Well, the president can influence tax law. I mean, you could see that, 4 or 5 years ago when Trump got the tax law passed through Congress, but it's got to go through Congress for anything to happen. And so the president's going to, wield his power, the veto pen. He or she will yield whatever power they have to influence Congress to get things done. And then it depends on which parties are controlling the House and the Senate to whether or not they can get anything done or get it through Congress at that point. There's some good things in tax law. Not taxing Social Security. You've already been taxed on it once. You shouldn't be taxed on it twice. I wholeheartedly agree with that. Maybe you need to put some upper limits on there. It's the same way I look at, government pensions. If you're making money outside of the government when you're done working for the government, it should offset what the government's paying you in pensions. And that's some of the stuff to help save this country. Not taxing tips. It's kind of one of those things that not everybody reports tips. I'm going to
Right
about it. But if you're not taxing tips, it means you're not collecting money for Social Security and Medicare from the people that are making tips. You're not collecting, crediting money towards what you're going to make Social Security and Medicare in the future either. So that's going to lower what your benefits potentially could be in the future. So there's some good and bad. I understand, people that work for tips sometimes are not the highest compensated people, but some of them make pretty good money doing tips, and that's why they do it. And it could influence a lot of industries to move more towards asking for tips as opposed to getting paid and compensated, and then it lowers what's coming in as well. So I don't know how this is going to work. The other tax laws that I've seen out there is taxing capital gains for items that weren't sold. So if you hold stock and you make enough money and all of a sudden you're going to get taxed on something you haven't sold, you're going to get taxed on the appreciation. Are they going to let you take the losses on unappreciated assets as well? Whether it's stocks, bonds, whatever it may be. So it's going to get really confusing out there. What's going to happen, how it's going to happen. With the tax law expiring in 2025, I know, Trump is trying to keep that tax law and expand on it. And I know Harris is trying, and the Democrats are trying to get rid of that tax law, but it's going to have some major impacts one way or the other. If you get rid of the law, it's going to supposedly continue to increase revenues coming into the government and keep what we've been doing, for taxes going forward. If you get rid of it, you may be hard pressed to get the child tax credit as high as it is now. You're going to be then subject to a lower standard deduction, and then you have to make sure that you've written off your property taxes and you can itemize, and you may not get as high as you are there. Some of the negatives we had with that Trump tax law was truckers out there. If you were a W-2 driver, you couldn't take unreimbursed business expenses. Same with salespeople that maybe didn't get reimbursed for mileage and stuff like that. And then, when you sit down and you look at that tax law, it had different implications for everybody. Everybody's got to get out and vote one way or the other. You got to get out and vote. Sit down and look at some of the things that people talk about with the tax laws on how each party is going to impact, and listen to the candidates as well. Are they really talking about what they're going to do? And is this something they're going to really stand behind, or is it just talk? Because, these days, a lot of politicians, all they are is a bunch of hot air, and you just go out and vote, and you think you're going to get something, and then you don't get what was promised out there. So, we all got to look at it. We all got to do our own personal thing. I always say you got to look at what it's going to do to your pocketbook more than anything else. social issues and things like that, most of them are handled by the state, and that's where you vote, and that's where the votes count. Especially here in Texas, your vote counts here, within Texas, not so much in the federal government. So, get out there and make your vote count and vote for the best tax policies, in my opinion.
Barry, a lot of people also are asking about, is it really true the IRS are only going after people who make $400,000 a year or more?
Well, that's kind of an interesting thing because we've seen the IRS going after, doesn't really matter what your income level is. If you own money, they want their money.
Right.
They can say what they want. Sometimes what you're looking at is they're saying 400,000, but if you haven't filed and you got 1099s out there, you may have 1099s that are well over, that 400,000, and they're coming after you. If you own, $40,000-$50,000, they still want money. They still need the money to fund the government. So they're trying to get after you as well. And they're going to continue to send those nasty letters, whether it's, hey, just a reminder that you owe money, a reminder that they've put a lien on everything that you own, or possibly even wage garnishments. And we've seen that. Just the other day, we had somebody call us that got their wages garnished. How much does he make? $60,000 a year. And he's like,
Wow.
well, wait a minute. They said they weren't coming after anybody that makes less than 400,000. Well, we just saw him get levied on his job, and he's not making 400,000. His wife, him and him both combined don't make over 400,000. It's just his debt, but they're coming after a wage garnishment on him. So is it true? Hey, I haven't seen it. Usually in the political climate that we're in now, you see collections kind of slow down a little bit because whoever's in power doesn't want to influence the election against them by having IRS coming out in collections. Just the same as you see, hey, all of a sudden we get a reduction in interest rate, maybe only 0.5%. It's kind of election year. We've got to do what we got to do to influence this. And you may see a few other prices come down like we've seen in Texas, but it's the election cycle and you see the ebbs and flows, as you go. So, take things with a grain of salt out there.
But the feds are supposed to be neutral, Barry.
I am neutral.
The feds.
I'm just saying it doesn't matter what party's in charge. This is the things that you see. And everybody's trying to influence an election one way or the other. And that's what it is. If you ask me, tax code, hey, the more complicated it is, the more business I get, right?
Right. That's true.
And that's just the true facts. I would rather the tax code be simpler. I mean, 5 years ago or so, we were going to go to a postcard.
I remember that.
I mean, it was supposed to be, just a simple postcard, what it was. And we always made jokes. The IRS was just going to send out a thing and said, how much did you make? Send it in. So you pay 100%, we'll give you some money back. I mean, that's where they're trying to head us to. In that case, now we have a section, another section, another section, another section that schedules all these schedules behind it that all tie to this, what used to be was the postcard. And, so they make it more complicated than they do others. But that's what happens when you put attorneys out there and not common sense businessmen into office. That's what happens when you have politicians out there and not enrolled agents that are going to go out there and write the tax code. And you put all these people that supposedly so superior in education instead of, hey, let's put some smart people in here that just know common sense. Hey, that's my soapbox for today. So I better get off that and let's get to tax resolution, right?
Hey, Barry, let me ask you now, there's all, we're hearing about all these new IRS agents out there. Have you noticed, are they being tougher now?
Tougher to deal with, yeah. I mean, they're not being tougher, on me. They're not being, tougher in collection wise. It's just tougher to deal with these agents that don't have the experience and the knowledge of the tax code, the Internal Revenue Manual, the things that they're supposed to be doing for you and I as a taxpayer. They don't know what they're doing to help us as enrolled agents to resolve the tax issues for our clients. What they are doing is putting them through a short class and not giving them the knowledge that they need and the rules and regulations that they've got to go through and follow. And we've got to school them as well as doing our job. It's fine with me. I've got enough experience doing it, but some of the younger people and newer people into the resolution, business don't understand what the rules and regulations are of the Internal Revenue Manual, of the Internal Revenue Code, and what these new revenue agents or revenue officers or IRS just agents out there aren't following, and you wouldn't know any better because you don't read the Internal Revenue Manual like we do. You don't know the rules and regulations that they actually have to go through and follow to get things done. Now, if you want to know how we handle things and how we can help you, you've actually got to pick up the phone and give us a call. It's a free consultation. We don't charge anybody any upfront fees, just to talk about what the problem is and what we can do for you and how we can help you through the problem, whether you owe the IRS, 5, 10, 15,000 or more, 100,000, $1 million, whatever that number is, whether you're going through an IRS audit. You've got to pick up that phone and call us at 877-996-6477. Again, 877-996-6477. We have a no judgment zone. We're not passing judgment on you. We, may not be your fault. The IRS may not even be right, but we can help you through this. Or if you don't want to pick up the phone and call us, because I know sometimes you just don't want to talk to somebody right now, but you want to wait and do it later, go to our website at taxationsolutions.net. Again, it's taxationsolutions.net. And go to our contact page, put in your information, put the information in, and then we'll call you and we'll devise a plan and a time that we can talk. Or head over to Facebook. We got a great social media page over on Facebook and Instagram. Just look up Taxation Solutions Tax Relief. We've got 50 offices around the country. So if you got friends or family anywhere in the U.S. or anywhere that has a tax problem with the United States government and IRS or even states, we help you anywhere across the country.
Barry, tell people, because we're sitting here talking about enrolled agents, tell people what that is.
Well, years ago, when I became an enrolled agent, I was carrying my CPA license, and I was talking to some IRS agents and some other people, and they went, "Well, you're not an EA." Okay, I'm a CPA, right? So I looked into EA and enrolled agent, and it's licensed by the U.S. Department of Treasury. Now, what you have to do is you have to go and be tested, or you had to work for the IRS for a number of years, and then you could come out, depending on your level, and become an enrolled agent. Sometimes you got to watch those people. I've had a few of them work for me, and they still have a government attitude. But us as enrolled agent, people used to think that I actually worked for the federal government. And I had to tell people, no. I work for you. I work against them. I'm just licensed by them. So you had to go through and pass the test, and then you had to go through this big FBI background check, make sure you were worthy. And then I could represent taxpayers to the highest levels of the IRS. And that's what we do. We represent you, the American taxpayer, against that big, bad collection agency called the IRS. And I say big, bad because they are the largest, baddest, toughest collection agency there is. And not only do you have to deal with IRS agents, but sometimes you've got to deal with their third-party collection agency as well. And, a lot of times those guys are even worse to deal with when you see that you've been assigned to a collection agency. We try to get it back to the IRS just so we can deal with the IRS agents as opposed to dealing with the collection agency. We can do that. We've got the power to be able to do that. But yeah, so we are licensed to represent you or the American taxpayer, within the IRS. We go all the way up to tax court, but not into tax court. We're not attorneys. As I always say, I'm not an attorney, never wanted to be an attorney, don't charge legal fees, but I do have attorneys that do help us and work with us as well. So when we do need things like that, we have to go into tax court. We can actually have somebody represent you, or we can work with you through mediation.
Barry, we have talked so many times about person gets that letter in the mail from the IRS and they tend to bury it, think it's going to go away. Tell people, first of all, what happens if you keep ignoring them?
Well, most people don't just ignore them. They take those things and they throw it in that wonderful circular file that's called the trash can. Yes. And, they pretend like they're never aware that they even had a tax problem until the IRS decides there's a great way to get your attention. Now, you and I may laugh about it, but it is serious. I mean, it's really, really serious when the IRS decides they need to wake you up and get your attention, because what that attention usually is, sometimes it's just a certified letter because it may get you to react. Most people won't go to the post office and pick it up. They'll swear to God they never got it. But once the IRS mails it, whether it's your current address or an address, whatever the last known address is considered to be sent and accepted, even though you don't pick it up. And you've ignored them, and ignored them, and ignored them, and ignored them, and they now want your attention. They just levied your bank account. Means they just took every single dime you had in your checking savings, and you think they can't find your bank. They're going to find your bank. They know. They're the biggest, baddest collection agency. They're going to get it. Or they garnish your wages. They've got your attention now, don't they? You weren't going to man up and deal with the tax problem. They forced you to. Or you just say, yeah, hey, who cares? Maybe there wasn't much money in there. Maybe there was $10 in there or something. Nobody cares then. Because you didn't have the money anyway. But maybe it was right before your mortgage was paid, or your rent had to be paid, or your car note had to be paid, or right on your payday. Now you have nothing. It's a wake-up call, and now what do? You've got to figure out what's the next steps to get you out of this problem. And that may be just calling us here at taxationsolutions.net, get tax relief, at 877-996-6477. Yeah, I got to get better at giving out this number because people ask me all the time, you didn't give your number enough.
I know.
877-996-6477. I realize we're on the radio and you might be driving and listening. You could be sitting in your office and listening, or even watching us at Talk 4 TV. And if you're watching us, you see it scrolling here and you see our website. But if you're listening while you're driving or out and about, then you've got to have that number again, 877-996-6477. It's a free consultation. It's where you get started to find out what kind of relief you can get from your problems with the IRS, whether they're caused by you, whether they're caused by them, whatever the reason is, we don't care. We're going to help you through it. We're going to find a solution for your problem.
Barry, we know also there's people who think that they can handle this themselves. They can talk their way out of this. I just cannot see how someone will want to try to handle this themselves. Tell people, usually, because you see a lot of these people who start off trying to handle this themselves, and then they finally realize that they should have called you first.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to give you a couple of real life stories here. First, when you talk about trying to talk your way out of things and you think you can do it with the IRS, I was driving a year or so ago through Virginia and got pulled over by the police officer. I thought I could talk my way out of a ticket. You know how that went.
Yes.
Well, I was probably going just a little bit too fast. And the next quick thing out of his mouth was, we could take you in for reckless driving. Yes, sir. Here's my license. Thank you very much. Thank you for the ticket. Appreciate it. Have a good day. We'll pay it and be done. The second one is I had a leak at the house. Yeah, I'm the plumber. Sort of. I went in, fixed it. Guess what? Wife called the plumber, the real plumber, not me. And he comes out, fixed it, charged me twice as much. Why? Well, you really screwed it up. You created your own problem on top of the problem that was there. Not only that, but I cut into drywall. And I had to get a drywall guy out to fix the drywall because I'm not talented enough to fix it, make the paint match and the texture match and all that fun stuff. So now, when the plumber came out, I didn't have to cut into drywall. Had nothing to do with that. So I've created a huge problem. And that's the same thing people do when they start dealing with the IRS, because it looks innocent and easy enough sometimes. You know, oh, this is a simple solution. I can just call in and get this. And you start getting in and you talk to the IRS, and that simple problem that you thought was a simple problem is actually a bigger problem. You were reacting after one little notice that you opened because you didn't open the other 40 letters that came in the circular file, right? You call the IRS, and now all of a sudden you find out that, well, you already knew it, but you hadn't filed about 4 years of tax returns, and you need to do that. And now you have 3 weeks to get them all in, or maybe 4. Then you find out that you now don't owe that $4,000 that you thought you owed. You owe more like $85,000 because the IRS did substitute for returns for a few years back as well. And you now told them the roadmap to everything that you have, thinking you were answering innocent questions. You know, some of the things they ask are leading questions to get you to answer, to give away everything to make their job easier, because their job is only one thing and one thing only: collections. To get money into the U.S. Department of Treasury to pay the government's interest, not their bills or anything else. They're just paying interest these days. You know, that's what they're trying to do. And they need your money to do it. They don't care about anybody else's money. They need your money because you're the person they're on the phone with today. Whether you can afford it or not, that's what they want. That's what their job is. Nothing else other than to collect as much as they can from each person that calls in as soon as they possibly can. So, you know, I always tell people, don't make the problem worse. Start out with us or some other tax relief firm out there that you feel you can trust. Make sure they've got enrolled agents on staff. Make sure it's not somebody calling you either. Because if they're calling you, 9 times out of 10, it's a scam. If the IRS is calling you, 10 times out of 10, it's a scam. Unless they've sent you a letter and it's somebody you're dealing with, it's a scam. Hang up the phone. And if you're really not sure that maybe that you owe the money, call us. We've got a special program that does tax analysis. We can get into the behind the scenes, everything the IRS has on you, your records, check everything out. When we do tax analysis, we can tell you, hey, did you leave $10 of interest off your return? Something as small as that we can go in there and find. Did you leave W-2s off, 1099-Rs off? Maybe you misreported a Schedule C and there were more 1099s for non-employee compensation. Things like that we can find in our tax analysis that we find for people. And a lot of times we keep people on some tax monitoring to where we can continue to monitor what's going on in their tax account and tell them before they would ever get a notice in the mail as well. And we stay on top of our clients' data so that they know what's going on, especially people we've put resolutions for their problems in place so that they don't have this problem again, or they don't lose their offer because they made a simple mistake.
We just got a text from Conroe. I'm really enjoying the show. How far back can the IRS go?
Well, it's kind of unlimited if you've committed fraud. So, we leave that as an opening there. But generally, if you haven't filed for the last 7 years, they're going to ask us to make sure that we file the last 5, 6, 7 years, depending on what you have out there. If it's just W-2s, they may just ignore it. If it's going for an audit, then it's the last 3 years. Again, now, if they get in and audit something for you and find out that you committed fraud, they're going to go back further and look at the other years as well. So you kind of want to make sure that, your tax returns are correct. Make sure that you're not just making mistakes to make mistakes. One of the biggest things we see out there is using a preparer that only cares about themselves. You talk to your neighbor, and your neighbor may be self-employed and seems to be getting money back every single year. Matter of fact, they talk about that they get earned income credit, but they're living in this glorious house, next to you, and you're barely making ends meet. And you're asking them how they do it. And he says, I never pay any taxes. I get earned income credit. I get all this. Well, you jump over to his preparer and you find out they're adding things in. Or they take you as a W-2, and all of a sudden now you have a Schedule C out there that's losing money that you're getting earned income credit yourself. There's a lot of different things these people do to make themselves look good, and they get a bunch of clients until them and their clients end up going through a audit. And we have seen that happen over the years, where the preparer gets audited and every one of his clients has been audited, or that preparer gives you his prepared or her prepared tax return and it comes back as self-prepared. Means that guy isn't really a preparer. He's just doing this, and you're actually filing your own return as if you prepared it, but yet you paid him. So you kind of got to watch out for these things. And, that's why I tell people, hey, find an enrolled agent. We're going to do things the right way because we're licensed. None of us that are out there that are enrolled agents want to lose our license. We took a lot of time to pass that test to become an enrolled agent. And we know more about taxes than, most CPAs do, most tax attorneys do. And you want to use somebody like us that's going to come out here and prepare these returns and do it the right way and not get you in trouble. So those are all the things that you want to, look for out there as well.
Barry, you have so many success stories, and I got to tell you, I've always enjoyed hearing your stories. Can you share some of your success stories?
And which ones do you want? Do you want the ones that are happy with me? Do you want the ones that are upset with me but got an incredible deal? Do you want the ones that
I remember that one?
Do you want us to tell you the one that we put an incredible deal together and he decided to go somewhere else and got a worse deal than what we were putting on the table for him? Everybody is different. That's the first thing I have to preface everything is everybody's situation is different. Not everybody qualifies for an offering compromise. Not everybody qualifies for a partial pay installment agreement. And not everybody qualifies for non-collectible status. If you talk to an IRS agent, everybody qualifies to full pay, whether you have the money or not, or full installment agreement to pay it all off. Everybody can qualify for that, supposedly, whether you have the wherewithal to do it or not. We took somebody here the last few weeks, and it was they owed $30,000. It didn't seem like a significant number, compared to some of the ones we do that are $500,000 or $1 million, but $30,000 is a lot of money. And, we got them on an offering compromise for $100. Yeah, $100. That's what we settled for. We took a gentleman that we had to restructure his business. He's making pretty good money. He's older. He's actually in his, late 70s, going into his 80s. And we structured his business to be S Corp so that we could put him on limited payroll. We found all the expenses he's been missing throughout the years to lower some of that income down. We restructured some other things in his business to limit what his income coming from the K1 from the S Corp was. He owed $120,000, and we got him down to $40,000 is what he was going to pay. So he had $80,000 savings on that. Wasn't the happiest with me, but you got to also back up, because a few years ago, we actually had him on a deal where he was settling for this, but the IRS came back and said, no, it had to be a full pay because they disallowed so many of these expenses because he was Schedule C. And they felt like we were duplicating, even though we really weren't. We couldn't get him down to the deal, so we had to restructure everything that he had to do in his business and in his life to get him down to that deal. Then once he got to that, he was ecstatic because we were actually able to put him to something that was reasonable. And we were able to help him to refinance his house so that he put it into his mortgage instead of having to come up with the money to pay the IRS themselves, out of his income, which he really couldn't afford to do with everything else he had going on. We had another person here that actually was mid 40s and actually was on disability, and she was close to what we call CSETs, that's statute of limitations, where the time runs out on collections. Now she owed about $195,000, $96,000, somewhere in there. And if we would have went offering compromise, she would have been paying closer to about 3/4 of that. We actually went to partial pay installment agreement, showed her income level, what she was getting from Social Security and disability, what other income she had, and then she had some other funds and stuff that she needed to help pay for medical bills that she needed to help continue to pay for her life going forward. And we were able to prove all this to the IRS and put her on what we call the partial pay. It means she's only going to pay a limited amount for a certain number of years. So the 2.5 years before the statutes ran out, she would pay a limited amount of money. And when we got done with this, she was paying no more than $500 a month. And it got it down to roughly 26 months by the time we got the deal finalized with the manager. So quite a bit of savings, for her, right there at $500 a month. I mean, that's only roughly $14,000 that she's paying on that $195,000, as opposed to if we would have went to the offer route, she would have been paying almost 3/4 of it because of what she had available. Sometimes we pull off miracles like that, and they're great things. Other people, we've had to go in and work with some people to try to get them. They've got $80,000 that they owe, and we're getting rid of $10,000 or $15,000 in penalties, and then having to put them on a installment plan because they do make too much money to actually go through the offer and get the offer for them. And so we actually did it in a stepped plan where, we're going to start out at a low amount this year, and 12, 14, 15 months from now, they're going to step up to another amount to pay, but they're going to end up paying full pay unless something happens in their life that changes. And, we've had another person that came to us that, was owing $38,000, and we actually put them in non-collectible, meaning that they didn't have the wherewithal to pay anything. Now, non-collectible status isn't permanent. They'll look at it again in a couple of years. But in her situation, her income was never going to change. She is just strictly on Social Security. And at that time, they were garnishing Social Security. So we got that garnishment lifted. And she's able to live her life on Social Security and not have to worry about paying the IRS. And yes, we actually have her file 0 tax returns every year so that the IRS doesn't ever doubt that she's in compliance. And so, we go through and do that so that we make sure that the IRS is going to come back and ask her a dumb question like, can you afford to pay this? No, I'm on Social Security, doggone it. So, those are the things. Now, what's going to happen in your situation? We've got to look at your income. We've got to look at your assets. We got to look at your equity in your house if you have one. In this day and age, you may have a lot of equity in your house, depending on how long ago you bought it. And we've got to look at your life situation. How can we change things so that you can qualify if you don't qualify for today? But again, I can't do it unless you actually call us, get that free consultation at 877-996-6477. Again, 877-996-6477.
Barry, we got a text from Sugarland. I'm 87 years old. I have not filed in the past 10 years. Because of my age, would the IRS still come after me?
I've seen them do it. Now, realistically, give us a call, because if your income is only Social Security, it's not going to matter. There's nothing going to be taxable for you. If you've been taking money like required minimum distributions from retirement accounts, it all depends on how much money you're taking out of there, whether it be taxed or not. So everybody's situation is different. But again, it's pick up the phone, give us a call, let us talk about it. Let us see what possibly needs to be done. If you've got a lot of assets, yeah, they could be coming after you. If you've got a lot of money being distributed out of a 401k, IRAs, living trusts, any number of things, you may have some tax liability. But again, just give us a call here at 877-996-6477. It's a free consultation. Again, it's 877-996-6477, or go to taxationsolutions.net. Hey, Steve, something we're really excited about. Now, you got us started in this and talking on radio. And
I was just getting ready to bring that up, Barry.
Credit to you for getting us out here, getting me out of my shell. I know when I started this 10 years ago, I really wasn't sure whether I enjoyed radio or not. We always laughed because there were times I was doing radio. I don't remember what station it was, but it was out of Orlando, Florida. And I'm at a baseball game for my son, watching baseball, doing this radio program. And, the guy's talking to me, and he's like, "Where are you at?" I said, "Well, I'm at my son's baseball game." And he's like, "Man, you shouldn't even be on the radio. You should be paying attention to the game." And I said, "No, this information is important. We got to get it out there. And I'm scheduled to be on radio. They just rescheduled my son's game. So I'm out here watching." And I'm like, "Yeah, go Casey, hit a home run or whatever." And I'm like screaming. And the guy's like, "Hey, we got to tone that down a little bit. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to scream on the radio." But getting out this information has been fantastic. But what I'm crediting you is not only getting me out here to do this, but now you actually got me to talk to Talk for TV and these guys. And I was talking about possibly starting a podcast, and I've been dragging my feet, not doing it. Well, probably not next week because it's too soon, but the week after, on Mondays, I'm going to be doing Talk for TV. I'm going to be doing a podcast. We don't have the name for it yet. What we're going to be called. I'm still working with Dean to do this, but hey, connect with us on social media. I love doing Ask the Experts. I'm still going to be here on the shows. Houston, I'm going to be on the shows nationwide.
Yes.
Anywhere else Steve-O asked me to be, I'm going to be, and I'm going to jump. He's going to say, "Jump here," and I'm just going to ask him, what time, how high, where do you want me?
And Barry, I got to tell you something. Barry, you've been doing radio commercials. Those are pretty easy to do, but you take the time to do these shows. You take, 30 minutes or an hour time out of your busy schedule, because Barry's also a great family person too, but to go out there and educate people. Because what you'll notice about our shows it doesn't sound like an info commercial. I mean, Barry really educates you, and you can't do that in a 30-second commercial.
No, you can't. I mean, I've done 30-second commercials. We stopped doing those a while ago. You get people that'll spend all kinds of money on, your radio to scare you into doing this, scare you into doing that. You know, yeah, we talk about the IRS being big and bad and tough collection agency. I'm more talking about, with our people is, hey, you need help doing this. We all need help. It's not our specialty to do this as an individual taxpayer, but it is Taxation Solutions specialty to help you and to deal with the IRS. That's what we do for you. And we're able to jump into your shoes and represent you. And you don't have to talk to the IRS. You don't have to do anything, but we get to do it. And when we get to doing our own podcasts and our own, Talk for TV and getting you on YouTube, get to our social media pages at Taxation Solutions, Tax Relief, we're going to be talking about everything in the tax code, tax relief, tax planning, reducing your taxes. How do you save money? Because tax is one of the biggest expenses for people that are self-employed, owner-operators, truckers, consulting
businesses.
firms.
You do businesses also.
It's all about reducing taxes and saving money. And, when you're talking self-employed, I mean, not only do you save federal income tax, whatever your rate may be, 15, 20, 10%, 30%, 39%, but you save on top of that, right off the top, that 15.3 Social Security and Medicare. How do you go about saving money on that? Because that is a huge cost up front. And you've got to absorb that as a small business person, consultant, owner operator, truck driver, you name it. When you're in business for yourself, that you've got to pay. Not only that is then you got to pay payroll taxes if you have employees. If you're a truck driver, it may be IFTA taxes, excise taxes, you name it. The government taxes you to death. Federal, states do that as well. How are you going to save the money? And that's what we're going to be getting across in our podcast, and then bringing it here also to Ask the Experts more and more, as we go down the road. And it's just about helping you, the taxpayer, figure out how to keep more money in your pocket, because with inflation, you need as much money in your pocket as you possibly can. You don't need to be giving the government more money. You need to be giving them less money.
I think, with Taxation Solutions, people really level the playing field when they retain your services.
No, they don't. No, they don't, Steve. You know better than
that.
I
knew you were going to do
You
this.
know better than that. We tilted into our clients' favor. I mean, it's, teeter-totter is like this, you want to say, hey, the IRS starts your way, up here. No, as soon as I step on it, my weight, man, we send that IRS flying the other way. We have fun with what we do. We enjoy helping our clients. We are always in communication with them. But again, it starts with, picking up that phone and call us. And I know we only got a couple minutes left. Again, our podcast is going to be Mondays at 9 o'clock Central Standard Time. Check us out at taxationsolutions.net, our Facebook page, truckertaxtools.com, and the Facebook page there. But if you've got a tax problem, or anybody in your family does, pick up that phone, call us at 877-996-6477. Do it today. Don't wait another day for the IRS to garnish your wages. And I appreciate everything, Steve-O, and Ask the Experts, and watch these programs on YouTube and everything.
And Barry will be back again with us next month. Barry, thank you so much. Stay safe. Tell your family hello for us.
Will do. Thank you, Steve-O. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
buddy. That's Barry Fowler. He is, folks, I tell you, he is the best when it comes to taxation. That's it for us today. We'll be back again with you next week with more.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.